Welcome to the Nonprofit World TV show. I'm your host, Donna Hagiga, and I have with us today Archie Elam, who's a VFW commander for the 1st District, which is Fairfield County. Welcome to the show, Archie.
Thank you. Thank you. Happy to be here.
Well, it's wonderful to have you here. And I understand, Archie, that you are a graduate of the Encore program.
You understand very well, ma'am. Yes.
Tell me a little bit about the Encore program for our viewers. It's a program that helps retrain individuals who have had careers in the corporate world or perhaps government into nonprofit jobs. Tell me what inspired you to go through the Encore program and what you got out of it.
Great question. So my inspiration for going came from the need to figure out the path for my next act, if you will. I had been a career Army officer coming out of West Point. I had been a corporate executive after Duke University, and that was all great. But I always felt like the things that I needed to do and the things that I cared about were in competition. And that's fine, that's normal life. But a lot of us get to the place where you really want to do the things that you care about. And I was lucky enough to be in a position where I could choose. And the Encore program sort of popped up out of the dark. And I got
How'd you hear about it?
Well, they sent me an email saying, hey, we see you're on a lot of corporate boards and you know, how about it? That was like almost 2 years ago. And at that time I was like, I'm in the middle of a giant consulting engagement in New Jersey. I don't have the bandwidth.
Sure.
And then they came back and said, how about it? I was, I think within 36 hours of the deadline.
Wow.
And,
right in under the wire, right?
And had to crank an application and get it in, and the rest worked out real well. Great group of folks. My classmates and all were just terrific.
What do you think some of the best benefits that you got from the program were?
A lot. I think top of the list was anyone coming into that program is going to get a look at what the nonprofit sector is and come away realizing it is very, very large. There are lots of organizations just in Connecticut. There are thousands.
Sure.
Right? And I've sat on my share of boards and all and realized, holy cow, we got that many? And there's a lot of need. So you got a lot of players and you have a lot of need, and trying to get those two things lined up is certainly where the challenge is. Second, I took away that the machinery, the operational and finance machinery under nonprofits is complex.
Yes.
And even though my background was corporate finance and got a finance degree from Duke, all of a sudden, like, whoa, there's a whole different language here. But that's not a showstopper, but it told all of us that, look, coming into this, you're going to bring things that are needed, but you've got to recognize that there's a whole bunch of things you have to learn, and you have to be prepared for an exchange, not just for here's what I'm doing, and great program.
Wonderful. And I understand that you were you appeared in an article in the New York Times last year that talked about a little bit about your experience in the Encore program, and talking a little bit about you know, your hopes for what your next gig might be. So I understand that you are currently looking for that next gig. Would you share with us, you know, what kind of role and perhaps what areas of the nonprofit world most speak to you?
Yes, ma'am. So the things that I care about are veterans, kids, and education. And I've been on my share of corporate boards, nonprofit boards, and leading organizations, president of 4. So leading an organization would be first. Or leading a function like developmental programs would be next.
And have you found, are there any organizations that kind of cut across? Certainly kids in education, that's a natural fit, but veterans and kids, or veterans in education, anything?
Yes, ma'am, great question. So veterans in education, there are There are a number of growing organizations out there that are trying to get their hands around that. A lot of that is driven by the large numbers of Iraq and Afghanistan veterans that are popping up in colleges, and trying to integrate them into our university programs. The second dynamic of that intersection occurs on the employment side, and trying to help our veterans transfer and translate their skills into opportunities in the commercial workplaces.
Sure. Are there organizations that are already working on that?
There are a number that are.
Is VFW, what does VFW do on
So
that?
great question. So one of the organizations that works in that is the Veterans of Foreign Wars. We have a student veterans program.
Okay.
We sit down with veterans and help them to navigate the education system and using their GI Bill and such. We help them to navigate the path to employment. One of the major challenges, and I saw this as an executive at GE as well, is when you sit in front of, or your resume is on a screen in front of a recruiter or a HR person, a lot of what you do in the military, if just described in plain language, wouldn't make sense.
Sure.
Right? And military folk generally are real good at about four big things that are very valuable in corporate America. They're real good at training and education. They're real good at managing teams and people. Real good in logistics.
These are all great skills to have.
Real good in technology. People don't recognize often how much computer technology is in a system like the Abrams tank.
Sure, I guess you're right. Nobody stops to think about that.
Yeah, right. That controls for ammunition, where gun tube angle. Somebody's got to run all that, right? And that's being handed to very young folks to handle in difficult situations. So, helping them to translate those underlying skills into the language and into the shape that an employer recognizes is a big piece of what we do.
Well, I guess I would add to those that list of skills that they have, also just the ability to be adaptable to new learning situations, because it sounds like they're constantly having to learn new technology and new systems and so forth, and that's definitely something that's portable in any sort of environment as well. Yeah, it is. Yeah,
adaptability is one of the keys, because whatever it is today, it could be something else and tomorrow, and you've got to be able to react to that real time.
Does the VFW also help to sort of create opportunities with employers by, getting them to understand that it's not only wonderfully patriotic to, look to our veterans returning as a possible workforce, but that they're great?
Yes, ma'am. One of the things I worked on recently was with Diageo Corporation in Norwalk for their Military Appreciation Day. Was a advisor to them on that, and we brought together large numbers of people and organizations. And one of the things that I do in my role as a commander for the district is to sit down with businesses at every opportunity to help them understand what our veterans are capable of, the kinds of things that they can bring to you, and what they can do to be of help. So I've worked with the Chamber of Commerce in Stamford, and small business associations, and the Connecticut Business and Industry Association, and others. Because a lot of this, what I'm finding is, they don't know. The businesses don't know. Give you an example. In the state of Connecticut, there are over 200,000 veterans. Not a number people would associate with New England.
Right.
Half of them are in two counties. There are 50,000 and change around Hartford, and there are 40,000 and change in Fairfield County, where I am. And they are everybody from World War II to Iraq and Afghanistan. And getting them and these businesses connected is a running challenge. So one of the keys is education, so that our businesses know, wow, these are people that we've not ever talked to
An
about.
Untapped source.
Untapped source, yeah, and that was one of the great outcomes of this event that we did with Diageo near the end of last year. It was hugely successful. They've got a great ethic over there, and great leadership, and that's one of the keys.
Wonderful. So who opened the door to that relationship?
Yeah, I did.
Okay, that's wonderful.
Yes, ma'am. But
so tell me a little bit more about what VFW does in terms of, we spoke a little bit about that, and what are, writ large, the district, what is your responsibility for program delivery, and what other programs are there? Yeah,
great question. So writ large for the district, membership, so reaching out to folks who would be interested in joining. We have a wonderful array of education things. We have an essay scholarship program for middle school and high school kids that we run every year. At the national level, we give away $2 million in change to kids across the country. Okay. All they have to do to get in is write an essay on a theme that our national commander-in-chief selects every year. We just had our state dinner awards event up in Rocky Hill. It was sold out. We had kids from across the state, so all the district winners went, and we had the young man from Fairfield County was one of the kids that we had worked with in a mentoring program that we ran for about 10 weeks to help kids that were exposed to gun violence find their way back, and we paired them up with veterans that have been in combat to help these kids understand that, hey, we all have seen it at one point, but you can get past it.
What a great program.
So yeah, so this young guy, 7th grader, Walker Luncey, soft-spoken kid, he had never seen the state capitol before. We took him up there. We've got kids that are isolated in places like that. So education is one space where we work a lot. We have a program called Buddy Poppies. The history of it goes back to World War I. So the Battle of Flanders in France is the origin, and there is a poem that later became a song written about Flanders fields and the red poppies that grew up beside the soldiers that had fallen there. So we have our Buddy Poppy distribution every year, and we're spending.
Are these for donation, or is it
yes,
sold?
Ma'am.
Yes,
ma'am. Yeah, just donation. So that will be out more publicly in the May timeframe, but we're in a prep stage for that as well. We have a student veterans program, so we can help veterans to get scholarship money and assistance to get through college, and we stay with them through that. We have a hospital visitation program that I led for the state of Connecticut last year, where we put together donations of everything from razors to socks to underwear to.
And is this visiting veterans in hospitals or just anyone?
Veterans in hospitals and nursing homes.
And I understand that in a previous career you had the title of state surgeon.
Yes.
Can you tell us a little bit about what that role entailed?
Yes, ma'am. So that was a role I had prior to becoming a commander for the district. In it, I was responsible for the hospital visitation programs and the education around veterans healthcare programs for the state of Connecticut. We want every veteran registered in the VA healthcare system. They're eligible. Most don't realize that they are. Okay. They'll say, well, I served 3 years, and so that makes you eligible.
As the minute you serve a day, are you eligible?
180 days of active service, honorable, is the legal definition of a
Sure.
veteran. So they're all eligible. Most don't know. So at every chance, that was one of the aspects of that job, is to get out there and help our veterans recognize
message
that
out.
you can get your health care taken care of, but you got to get registered, and it's free. So you can do it online, or you can go to one of the healthcare
Sure.
centers in West Haven.
Tell me a little bit about what the VFW is doing, particularly with respect to women vets, and incorporate, having them feel included, or perhaps doing something special. What goes on with women?
Yeah, it's a great question. So we have a very special outreach program for them. In my home post in Stanford, we've got several. We recognized one here who was a nurse in World War II, who treated veterans injured at Normandy.
Oh, wow.
And terrific lady. She's in her 90s, smart, funny. We have a younger veteran from Operation Desert Storm in our post as well, and most recently a command sergeant major came to join us. Multiple tours in Iraq and Afghanistan, multiple languages. Served some time with special operations. She's terrific. So when we are out in our schools and in our communities, one of the things that I talk about, and I bring folks some history on it, is the history and the contribution of our women to military service, in particular in Connecticut. We've got some real heroes and heroines here in Connecticut that are mostly not known by kids in communities. So we look out always for our women veterans. I'm the son of an Army first sergeant. My sister served with me in the Gulf War.
So real Army
Marines.
family.
We're a
Yes.
real military family, yes, ma'am.
And are you starting to see women starting to take part in leadership in VFW in Connecticut as well?
Yes, ma'am. Our National Quartermaster General is a Gulf War veteran with Bronze Star, and she's quite terrific.
Wonderful.
We have several of our posts in the state are commanded by women. I have my eye on one to be my chief of staff.
Okay.
And they are, we look to support them and mentor and coach them at every opportunity.
So talk to me a little bit about the hierarchy. How does one get to be a commander of District 1? Did you have to go through a process and sort of pay your dues to start off as your chapter head, or how does that work?
Yes, ma'am. So I'll start at the end of the process and go backwards.
Okay.
So at the end of the process is an election held at the district convention in the spring. Nominees are bubbled up from the posts across the district for each of the various officer roles, and then they are vetted, voted on, and plurality wins. Prior to this, I was, like I said, the state surgeon and the second in command of the district last year. Before that, I had several roles down in my post as a project leader for a flag planting project that we do.
Oh, yes, I read about that.
Yes, ma'am. We plant 4,000 flags every year with help from the community. I was the vice commander for the post, and then I got invited to the state convention, and they said, "Hey, how'd you like to be a surgeon?" And things kind of took off after that. So to do this role, if I were writing an advisory, I would say be a member, be engaged, do work at your post in various roles, the commander if you can, if not others, where you learn how this works. Because you see very quickly at the state level and higher, there's a lot of machinery. And things come at you real time, and that background and work that you put in prior is what's going to get you through all that, because you don't have a whole lot of let me figure it out time when things show up.
And so from commander, what would be the next natural step if you were to go to the next step?
Yeah, so they're pushing me hard to eventually be the commander for the state.
State, that's what I figured.
Yes, ma'am. Right now, I'm just trying to learn my current job. And I've got, the term is a year. I suspect I'll do this another year at least. And then one of the other roles, probably at the state level, the chief of staff or the inspector or something like that. And then one of the vice commander jobs, probably after that. But
you don't see too many people probably leapfrogging to a position without having gone through the hierarchy, I'm guessing, considering this is military and things are very hierarchical.
Yeah, no, and it's not just because of the hierarchy. There's a lot of informational and organizational depth that you find out you have to bring to this. When you get, certainly when you get above a post level, we've got bylaws, a book about that big. We have a Commander's Manual of Procedures about that big. So you've got to soak up all that stuff before you're holding a gavel in front of 2,500 people and trying to get them all to do something. So that's really the piece that people miss. It's not that we wouldn't otherwise allow it. It's that we don't want folks going in and realizing they are
not set up for
success. Yes, ma'am. That's very important to us.
So Archie, you had quite a rich and deep career in the corporate world before you decided to go to Encore and sort of look for the next chapter. Talk to me a little bit about what you did in that corporate career of yours.
Oh, wow.
And for whom you worked.
Yes, ma'am. So my corporate career started at GE Capital. I finished an MBA at Duke coming out of the Army. At GE, I stayed there almost 10 years, number of roles, Six Sigma, executive risk management, vice president, the head of CRM for one of their insurance businesses, the head of disaster recovery for one of their insurance businesses during 9/11. That was quite an adventure. My last role there was a general manager for an international leasing joint venture.
Yeah.
After that, United Technologies in Windsor Locks, was a business development executive for one of their business units. Great experience. Went from 11 million negative to 25 million positive in 3 years. And then consulting world came calling. So I was recruited by the George Group, who was later bought by Accenture like a year or so after I got there. And we did Six Sigma strategy consulting for the Army and the U.S. Postal Service.
Okay.
And then I stepped out on some things on my own. In between all those, many tours on corporate boards, 100 Black Men, chapter president, Alpha Phi Alpha fraternity, chapter president, Delta Nu Boule of Sigma Pi Phi. I was the founding vice president of their foundation, the Opportunity Foundation Incorporated. Board chairman for the Eurobridge Center, board chairman for the Red Cross, board chair currently for the Connecticut Ballet, and a member of the Veterans Council for the state. As well currently. So those two things for me have always sort of walked side by side.
Sure. And you said that your MBA, the concentration was in finance?
Finance and management, yes ma'am.
And yet you kind of went more towards the management side of that in terms of your career, but of course the finance always comes
not far behind, yes
right.
Not far behind. You got to keep them all in.
And in terms of program development, because I know we talked about, in nonprofit space, you would be interested in executive director, which certainly your skills speak very, very highly to, or development, which with your CRM background and all of your board experience and everything else, certainly you would be a natural for that. In terms of program development, what have you done maybe either with some of the nonprofits or with your VFW or even in your corporate career? Yeah,
so a big piece of my life in corporate America and on boards and such has been in program development. I'll give you a couple examples. as the founding vice president for the Opportunity Foundation, we built our scholarship and awards program. We raised several $100,000 on our first event for this, and tacked onto it a mentoring program.
Wonderful.
I was the vice president of development before I was. I'm sorry, of programs before I became the president of the Stanford chapter of the 100 Black Men. We had a nascent effort in outreach to our schools and in mentoring. So with a team of 4 people, we put together a citywide mentoring program, and the driving metric for us was entry rate to college.
Good.
So looking at kids that were 7th, 8th, and 9th grade and walking them through a freshman orientation program that I didn't write it, one of our colleagues did. It was so well done that it was registered at the Library of Congress.
Wow, that's amazing. Well, Archie, you sound like you're going to be an amazing asset to some nonprofit in terms of being a paid staff person, because you're already doing amazing things as a volunteer, both for VFW and all the wonderful nonprofits that you mentioned. It's been a real pleasure to have you on our show.